All right, let's put the big screen under the spotlight, so to speak. And Motheo Matsau is with us. He's the head of marketing at Ster-Kinekor. We're going to ask a very interesting question today. How does a brand, or a platform perhaps describes it better, survive in this incredibly competitive space that we are working in at the moment? It's perceived to be under threat. I need to mention things like Showmax and Netflix, and I would imagine those at the big screen offerings are maybe getting a little bit nervous. Motheo, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. I mean, is it fair to say that the platform is under threat, or is there still a constant loyalty towards cinema?
No, there's certainly a constant loyalty towards cinema. It depends what you mean when you say under threat, because then everybody would be under threat as the sort of the options and the industry grows. Cinema has a very constant following. In fact, we've seen some growth recently, but you know, it's not immune to the challenges of innovation, and you mentioned, you know, sort of video on demand type brands. However, those are good for us, I think, because what they do is they grow the industry. You know, they grow the pie, they grow the cake, and therefore each sort of platform starts to define itself very clearly. We are very clear from a cinema point of view that the experience of cinema is very different from consuming on those other platforms.
You have preempted my next question, but I think fairly predictably. How then do you develop and articulate an experience that people want? Gone are the days when you just arrive and watch a movie. It's got to be a whole lot more than that.
Absolutely. The challenge, partly, Jeremy, for that is that your experience of coming to the movies starts at home, or it starts at that point where you make the decision. Now, at that point, I don't know who you are. I then need to make sure that when you walk into the cinema, the experience starts. And it's from small things like the smell of popcorn. But on a grander scale, what
is that still a thing?
Oh yeah, it's a big deal.
Okay. Take your word for it.
But on a grander scale, we've got different platforms and different offerings, or rather, of the platform. So at Ster-Kinekor, depending on what you want to consume or how you want to consume the content, we've got different offerings. We've got normal commercial cinema, which is sort of your stock standard cinema in 2D or 3D. We've got Cine Prestige, which is for the the sort of the premium experience, and then we've got IMAX, and this is really if you want your senses pulverized by sound and vision.
Fundamentally, though, you're held hostage by the blockbuster. That if there are blockbusters and a good franchise movie, people are going to flock. If you're in a thin season, people are not. Right. That's when they'll revert to the other offerings. Yes. And so it depends on the pipeline of content availability.
Mostly, yes. I mean, content is what brings people in. But we're also, we're also aware, and we do a lot of research around what consumers want and what they talk about regarding their experience of cinema. The movie is always the last thing mentioned, simply because I think they come there already with an expectation of what the movie will deliver. If you did a poll now to say what movies do, people will tell you about movies, but if you talk about cinema or going to the cinema, there's a long list of things before they get to the actual film. So we are very cognizant of that, and we're trying to improve that experience and sort of customize it to the different audiences that come to the cinemas.
You know, my mom and dad used to dress up to go to the cinema. We don't do that anymore, do we?
That's the
the problem.
And that's the well, I suppose. Look, you hit on a very pertinent point around cinema. There's now a generation of people, or there's a generation that has never really been or experienced cinema, or have had cinema as part of their entertainment, and that's the real challenge. Getting those people to experience cinema for the first time and for the right reasons. People used to dress up to go. Cinema used to be the hottest date. And for some people it still is. For most people there are other options.
So who's the new audience that you're trying to attract here?
So there's, if I define them from an age point of view, Jeremy, we would be talking about people between the ages of about 16 to about 28. Simply because for them, cinema has not always been part of their repertoire of entertainment. They came into an era where there were a lot of options. Unlike people who are slightly older, they may have had cinema as part of their repertoire and maybe left or have reduced their attendance. Those are easier to reattract or bring back. It's the new ones to convince that the experience on that screen is different to any other.
Just finally, what's the marketing thrust? Do you rely more on a digital marketing strategy these days, or are you using, for instance, television advertising, which you did with great success, I think, at Lurie's this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we still do. So we try and use sort of a broad audience, a broad channel sort of approach. digital is probably the most effective, and I'd say digital, I'm including social media in there as well, because that's where the word of mouth sort of and recommendations come through. But we're still across platforms, even print. We're still in there.
And the popcorn will always remain important.
And the popcorn will always remain.
Okay, Motheo Matsau, thank you very much indeed. Head of Marketing at Ster-Kinekor with us here on the Red Zone.